Can you hear me?
I can. It just broke up just a little.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought something weird happened. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting of the City of Bloomington Township to order. Guess we have a pledge of allegiance to the flag. We're going to get started. So I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the
United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So, Madam Clerk, would you please go ahead and call the roll?
Thank you. Trustee Matthey. Trustee Bolin.
Here.
Trustee Milawambwe.
Here.
Trustee Emig.
Here.
Trustee Painter.
Here.
Trustee Carrillo.
Here.
Trustee Black.
Here.
Trustee Crable.
Here.
Trustee Bray.
Here.
Okay. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items under the consent agenda that anybody would like to remove? Okay, seeing none, I see none. And I don't see any hands here.
I move we approve as presented.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second, okay. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, thank you.
Aye.
Trustee Milawambwe, I
Yes.
actually have to do everything by roll call right now with
Okay,
us doing our digital meeting. Sorry about that.
That's
All right, I'll make it quick.
Okay.
Trustee Bolin.
Yes.
Trustee Milawambwe.
Yes,
Trustee Emig.
Yes.
Trustee Painter.
Yes.
Trustee Carrillo.
Yes.
Trustee Black.
Yes.
Trustee Crable.
Yes.
Trustee Bray.
Yes.
okay, awesome. I'm getting a little bit of feedback here, but we'll just plow forward. Okay. So next item of on the agenda is a second amendment to settlement agreement between State Farm Mutual Automobile Company, the City of Bloomington Township, and other taxing bodies in McLean County regarding assessed value of parcel owned by State Farm for tax years 2020, 2024. And the recommendation is that the agreement be approved and the Township Supervisor and Township Clerk be authorized to execute the necessary documents. Do we have any comments by the Township Supervisor? Is Deb here?
She is here, but I don't.
Yeah,
Oh, here she
hang
comes.
on. I was trying to merge Steve on the call because he's not getting it properly. I don't have any comment. This is very similar to the one that happened 5 years ago. The settlement really, the big players, City of Bloomington and some of the other ones are the ones who make most of the decision making, especially District 87. And so it doesn't affect Township as much. So we usually go with whatever they're deciding. So.
Okay, awesome. Should we go ahead with a motion then?
I'll make that motion. I will make a motion to approve as presented.
Okay,
Excuse
motion
me.
by, oh, go ahead.
I'd just like to make mention, I'd like to recuse myself from this matter as this
Okay.
involves my employer.
As
Okay,
would I, Mabuka.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you very much. So motion by Trustee Bolin. Do we have a second?
Okay.
Okay, second by Trustee Painter is who I see. Okay, so Madam Clerk, would you go ahead with the roll call then?
Yes. Trustee Bolin.
Yes.
Trustee Milawambwe.
Yes.
Trustee Emig.
Yes.
Trustee Painter.
Yes.
Trustee Carrillo. Trustee Black.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. The item passes. And now we're gonna move ahead with reports by elected officials, starting with our Township Supervisor, Deb Skirroon. Deb?
Okay, I don't, has everybody read my supervisor's report? There's a lot in it. I just want to make note that everybody understand that next month we'll be talking about the supervisor and assessor compensation for the newly elected election cycle. And if you have any questions about that, we can discuss it if you send me an email or, or we can meet and talk about it. We'll go over some of those details next board meeting.
Okay, awesome.
We did have an emergency, 2 air conditioner units had different repairs that were necessary. Wanted to make note that we are going to have to do some upgrades on our building. It's 17 years old, and these types of things are going to have to be looked at and budgeted for the next season, or next levy, sorry.
Okay. Are there any questions for our Township Supervisor? Okay.
This is
go ahead.
Jeff. Sorry. Thanks, Boca. Deb, I sent you some questions earlier, and I just thought it'd be good to share those.
Okay.
My first question has to do with the the transfer of the money from the general township fund to the CERP fund, which is the emergency COVID fund, and the $200,000 to the general assistance fund. And as I understand that, those monies have not been transferred or set yet. And if you could go ahead and explain that and what the intent in the future of that would be.
Yes, the money has been approved to be transferred, but until it's needed to be transferred, we're keeping it in an interest-bearing account. And
Okay.
so that would be for the 100,000. The line item is there budgeted for that 100,000, and same with a move for GA funds. If it's needed, will be transferred to the GA funds with board approval. For the SERP program, which is the 100,000, all it needs is a line item transfer because we've already done that. When it comes time, if it comes time that we need to move 200 into the GA fund, we will need board approval for that. So, but at least we're prepared to do that if we need to do that. But until that happens, we're not moving it, just so that we can collect as much interest as we can on that account.
And from what I understand and looking at the numbers in the packet, Deb, between 2019 and 2020, we're actually spending less in general assistance than 2019. If you could explain why you think that is.
I believe that in March and April, yes, thank you, Jeff, for bringing that up. I believe in March and April, the numbers are lower, a little bit lower, definitely, because I mean, my belief is that, the low income that were needing assistance in the past are receiving the IDES, which is the employment insurance, at a higher rate, and they would be disqualified and weren't needing any assistance at that time. May had a little bit of an increase, not much. It's pretty similar to what it was before, lower numbers, but a little bit more income. So it has not changed basically. In June, yes, the numbers are lower. The only thing I can think of with that, and my belief would be that there are no evictions, and that's moratorium is still in existence through August 22nd. And then LIHEAP, it went through without any disconnects through the end of June. July is open for the Ameren and the gas to be able to see what they can collect, but then that goes into effect again, LIHEAP does, in the beginning of August. So not sure we'll see anything until all this stuff is done.
Gotcha. All
Okay,
right.
before we go
Thanks,
any
Deb.
further, I just want to make sure that we stay on track in terms of time, because it's 5:56 and our next meeting starts at 6 o'clock. And we still have the report from the township assessor.
That's all I have in Boca.
That's what I have. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to make sure we stayed on track in terms of time. Okay. So go ahead.
I think I might have to speak for Steve a little bit and just go through his report because he's unable to get on the microphone. So he can hear the call. So if I'm saying anything wrong, he'll let me know that tomorrow. The assessor's report basically says that there's little value increase for 2020. We have minor adjustments to assessments to some properties already. So they hope to have the assessments published in at the same time this year, early September. So you can read the rest of that report, and any questions that you may have of him, please send him an email or give him a call.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, at this point, I ask you if you have any public comments.
I have not received any public comments. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. And at this point, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Okay. Moved by Trustee Bray and seconded by Trustee Black. Voice call, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is there so all those in favor? Sorry.
Aye.
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 Okay. All right. Thank you. Township meeting is adjourned, and then we'll meet with you in the next minute or so for the next episode.
Leslie, do you have a second for me to talk to you?
Sorry, Maboka.
Yeah, would you like me to pop off?
No, I just wanted to, I didn't hear who was present and who wasn't, that's all.
Yeah, so actually everyone but Trustee Renner was present. Trustee Matthew popped on at 5:54.
Okay, thank you. I just want
All
to
right.
make sure. Okay,
No problem.
appreciate it. Thanks. All right, bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Maboka.
You're very welcome.
You don't get your $10 now, Terry, for showing up late.
That's
Ah,
right.
I wasn't going to spend it all in one place anyway, so what the heck?
Lose the township 10.
Actually, Maboka, I wasn't kidding. We are going to start in less than a minute. Okay, we're going to go ahead and call the meeting of the Bloomington City Council to order. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance and then a moment of silence, and then I'll ask Madam Clerk to call the roll. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could have a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Matthew,
Here.
Councilmember Bolin,
Here.
Councilmember Miller-Wambwe,
Here.
Councilmember Emig,
Present.
Councilmember Painter,
Here.
Councilmember Carrillo,
Here.
Councilmember Black,
Here.
Councilmember Crable,
Here.
Councilmember Bray,
Here.
Mayor Renner.
Here. Thank you very much. We're going to start out with a COVID-19 update, and I'm guessing we're going to Billy Tyus. Billy, are you on the line?
I am here. Thank you, Mayor.
Sure. Thank you, Billy.
Mayor and members of council, first of all, I just have a few items to sort of run through as it relates to an update on COVID. I'd like to start with the CDBG program. As you know, you approved allowing funding for both residential and economic development types of projects or types of assistance. We have not yet created the economic development program. We're still working through the details of that, but the residential program is up and running. And actually we've had a really, really good response, I feel. So far we've received 208 total applications. We've gotten through an initial review, at least of 197 of those, and 114 of those have actually been referred to other agencies that have the resources to serve the needs as part of our coordinated entry process. Now, what that means for the public is that CDBG funding, please remember, is meant to be a source of funding of last resort. So if there are other resources available in the community, then residents are referred to those sources. Again, not sent door to door, but more as part of our entry process, referred to those sources. And again, 114 people have been referred to other agencies, which is a great thing because it means that we have a lot of resources in our community so far. The thing to remember is that there will for sure come a time when those resources are extinguished, and we will begin writing more checks directly from CDBG funding. But again, the program is up and running, 208 applications to date, and we are processing those internally. In terms of COVID positive cases, as you've all read and seen, case numbers continue to increase, both locally and nationally. And just wanted to let you know that we continue to monitor those as closely as we can, and also to monitor what's happening at the state level. We don't know if there will come a day when the current phase 4 is amended and where we're in a different phase. And we're looking to monitor how that will impact us as an organization and also as a community. So we continue to monitor that as best we can. And finally, we've talked a lot about in recent meetings about, excuse me, ADA compliance. I want to let you know that staff has begun contacting businesses identified as having compliance questions, and those that we've identified as part of some of our independent review. I wanted you to know that our first step was to conduct a review, as we've talked about. The other thing that we wanted to do and needed to do was to make sure that some of the compliance related issues that were submitted by LifeSeal, which you're familiar with, were in fact compliance issues. And that is by no means, I want to be clear, any reflection on LifeSeal. It is not. We just have the responsibility to make sure that those things that we are reviewing and talking to businesses about are actually compliance issues. So we have started the process of reaching out to businesses, and we'll keep you updated as that process continues. Other than that, that's all I have as it relates to COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you much, Billy. Appreciate that very much. Next, we move to recognition of appointments. And I'm going to turn it over to our clerk. Did you want to announce those?
Sure, I can. Sorry, one second. We have Ryan House with Connect Transit Board, the Deborah Presley with the Connect Transit Board, Kelsey Harms, Citizens Beautification Committee, Nikki Williams, Zoning Board of Appeals.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. What public comment do we have that was, or do we have anybody waiting to speak to us?
We do. We actually have two waiting, Willie Halbert and John Walther.
Okay. Go ahead, Madam Clerk. Willie?
All right.
Willie, can you hear us?
Oh, okay. How's everybody doing?
Okay, thank you, Willie. Go ahead.
I wanted to speak regarding the Juneteenth celebration. As we know, Juneteenth is one of the oldest known celebrations commemorating the ending of slavery in the United States. Dating back to 1865, it was on June 19th that the Union soldiers led by Major General Gordon Granger landed at Galveston, Texas, with news that the war had ended and that the enslaved were now free. Note, this was 2.5 years after President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, which had become official January the 1st, 1863. With this shocking news, the Blacks went from shock to rejoicing and chose to celebrate this newfound freedom with inspiration speeches, song, dance, and wonderful food that celebrates the heritage. It is with that same spirit that we have here in Bloomington, Normal, McLean County, over the years celebrated this historical time and acknowledged the contributions of African Americans in this community on this day throughout history of music, dance, storytelling, speeches, great food, and fellowship. If you all recall, back in for 2019 celebration last year, I actually came to the June City Council meeting, and you presented us with the proclamation for the Bloomington Normal Black History Project. It was then I submitted packages to everyone acknowledging our request for assistance from the city to help with the funding for this project. Juneteenth is not new to our community. It has been in existence. It goes back to the first Juneteenth celebration, which was 1993, that was held at Wesleyan. Some of you who've been around long enough might remember that. Then Dr. Mildred Pratt from Illinois State University, she actually came, and she's from Galveston, Texas, and brought it to the Bloomington Normal Black History Project. We just wanted to share that we are in total alliance with having a Juneteenth as a city holiday, and we hope that we can be a part. Hope we can, since we have this in existence within our community, that the city will work with us, and that we may continue this tradition throughout for time to come. I want to thank you so much for allowing me this time to speak and to share some of the rich heritage that we have with our Juneteenth celebration. We had it this year via Zoom. And last year, when we had it at the center, we had over between 400 to 500 people coming in and through to the celebration. This year, we had it via Zoom because of the pandemic. We wanted to make sure everybody was safe and for people health reasons. But we're looking forward to next year. It will actually be on June 19th. So we appreciate the city's acknowledgement of this great heritage and this history that is for our entire community to celebrate.
Thank you so much, Willie. I appreciate that very much. And thank you for your great words of wisdom. Madam Clerk.
All right, next up we have John Walthier, right there.
Hello. Let's see, I wanted to thank the police for their professionalism and composure while they were being pelted with rocks and epithets, while people in the middle of the night were planning to rob local businesses. Now, Councilwoman Carrillo is not the first public official that I've heard after riots to say that I'm not going to, I don't support violence, but I'm not going to talk about people's vandalism and robbery, but I'm not going to tell people how they should express their anger. That was after the murder of Ernst von Rath and the night of broken glass. Now, I don't have the same perspective as she does on some issues, but I am somewhat familiar with the use of violence and political violence and vandalism. I grew up in a place controlled by Democrats and visited places controlled by socialists. But now, if you want to work with the police in making them even better, I can work with you. We can all work together on that, but we are going to disagree on things. If you want to try to work on the problems that we are facing, both those that are very real and those that are ones of perspective, we can work together, but we are going to have disagreements. That shouldn't be frightening to people. This is a republic. One of the things that that same sort of approach to exploiting fear and anger and frustration and powerlessness, hatred and bigotry. And I really am concerned about that. When I was in Buchenwald, which became Special Camp 2, I said that if I saw people using the techniques that I saw before, techniques that said that you were supposed to be your neighbor because they have a different perspective, a different political opinion than you are, that people should be fearful of their lives and livelihood because they disagree with the people in power. I said that I would speak up, and that is why I asked to speak today. And hopefully you can make Juneteenth on a weekend so we can have the large crowds we used to have on a different subject. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Okay, that was it, Madam Clerk, is that correct?
That is it for everyone who registered. And then I received emailed public comments, which I provided to council earlier today from Willie Halbert and Arlene Hosea.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any items as we move to the consent agenda that any members of the city council would like to have removed for separate consideration? I do not see any hand. Excuse me. Councilmember Boland and Carrillo.
Yes, item 8G and item 8K.
8G and K. Councilmember Carrillo.
Item 8C, like cat.
8C. Okay, 8C. All right, is there a motion to approve what has been presented except for items G, K, and C in the order in which they were pulled?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Bray. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Looks like Councilmember. Oh.
Okay, Councilmember Black, were you seconding? Okay, thank you. Yes. At this point, Madam Clerk, then would you call the roll? This is approving it with the exception of the 3 items pulled.
Councilmember Matthey.
Yes.
Councilmember Boland.
Yes.
Councilmember Milawambwe.
Yes.
Councilmember Emig.
Yes.
Councilmember Painter.
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Black.
Yes.
Councilmember Crable.
Yes.
Councilmember Bray.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and turn this to Councilmember Boland, who pulled items G and K. Well, let's go ahead and start with item G. Donna.
Okay, I am going to approve this, but I just wanted for clarification to go over some of the information. And Kevin, you're here, so maybe you can answer some of the questions. Is it correct that the state motor fuel tax, be clear, is for infrastructure of lighting, or is it just for the electricity?
Yeah, thank you. The motor fuel tax, the state motor fuel tax, can be used for different items, and one of those is for street lighting expenses. So it can pay for the electricity and also the what we call the street rental charge. So most of our street lights in Bloomington are either provided through Ameren or Corn Belt. There are some that are the city's responsibility, but we can pay for those expenses, those monthly expenses, using reimbursement from the state motor fuel tax account.
Okay. Does it also include traffic safety signals?
That 1.3 million in the budget, that does include energy for the traffic signals. And that mixes things up a little bit if we try to use the state MFT for that, because we also seek reimbursement from IDOT for their share of the energy costs for the signals that are either 100% state or jointly city state. So if they're, like at Veterans and Empire, that is 100% state. We take care of the maintenance and we bill them the energy cost at 100%. But for a signal that is on, say, Morrissey and Lincoln, it's 50-50, where it's half state expense and half city expense. And so that gets kind of complicated if we try to do the full reimbursement for those energy costs, because they're already reimbursing us. And so it'd kind of be double dipping on some of the state motor fuel tax if we try to do that. So it's cleaner just to use it for the street lighting part.
Okay. The reason I'm talking about this is I just want to make it very clear that there's a difference between the state motor fuel tax and the local motor fuel tax and what it's used for. And my understanding is that the state motor fuel tax would be used for major projects like bridges and large street repair and rebuild, but that the local motor fuel tax is for the asphalt and concrete, which the council has earmarked for that purpose. So I'm going to make a motion to approve as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Bray. I do have, just to clarify, these are really important things that to obviously clarify to citizens, but these are if we continue to need to do these kinds of things with the consent agenda, then we may need to talk to our city manager because these are not the kinds of things that we would normally pull or city councils or county boards would pull. We would want to clarify these things or have the council members, the city manager clarify these kinds of things rather than in a business meeting. Councilmember Matthew, you have a point or a question.
Yeah, Mayor, thank you. I just wanted to point out that Deputy City Manager Tyus and I and the Public Works Department are still working on the smart street lighting proposal that I put forward a while ago. And that I hope that someday soon, the $500,000 actually covers the full light bill for the entire city of Bloomington. So that's kind of still part of our goal. So
okay, but and I appreciate that. I appreciate all of you are saying. But once again, this is a consent agenda, and as a consent agenda, as I say, we now this year, certainly in my 12 years on the county board, we have pulled many more things in the last 6-7 months than we did in 12 years when I was in the county board. And that's the best.
Approving this one, Mayor.
Pardon me?
I consent to approving this one. Let's move forward.
I'm glad that you do. No, I'm just clarifying. If there are some things that we really need to clarify and to have the administration clarify, then we should talk to them. So we don't put these things on the consent agenda, so we don't have these kinds of situations. Unless people have a direct financial kind of obligation or problem with it, mostly we should be approving these unless there should be the extreme circumstance. But we do have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Matthey,
Yes, I consent.
Councilmember Bolin,
Yes.
Councilmember Millawambe,
Yes, I consent.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes, I too consent.
Councilmember Painter,
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo,
Yes, I consent.
Councilmember Black,
So consented.
Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Bray.
Yes, I consent.
Okay. Since we're all in consent, we're going to go back to item 8K. Councilmember Baldwin.
Yes, and thank you for your explanation about consent agenda. I'm well aware of it, but I get feedback from constituents that are asking questions, and I believe they should be sometimes explained in public for clarification, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Sure. Just to say, Don, on that note, the place to clarify that it would normally be in aldermanic comments if is a thing, or ask the city manager to do that. So we're not all, especially if everything were pulled or a large portion of these things were pulled. But anyway, Go ahead, Councilmember Bolin.
Okay, I also am going to vote in favor of this particular item, but my only concern was that we are going to be reimbursed by this money, and I am concerned with the $2.2 billion state revenue shortfall if the state is really going to reimburse us on this. But I will make a motion to approve as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second to this? A second by Councilmember Bray. Okay, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Matthey,
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin,
Yes.
Councilmember Millawambe,
Yes.
Councilmember Emig,
Yes.
Councilmember Painter,
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Black,
Yes.
Councilmember Crable,
Yes.
Councilmember Bray.
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo, you have pulled the last item that we're considering separately, and that is item 8C. I'm going to go ahead and turn that over to your concerns.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we not approve this purchase.
Okay, and did you want to add any clarification to that?
We talked about it last meeting, so I don't think I need to take up too much.
All right. Is there a second to not approving this purchase?
I'll second, Mayor.
Okay, second by Councilmember Craybill. Any further discussion?
So Mayor, I'd like a clarification from our city council, corporate counsel, city attorney, Jeff Jurgens. So as this is postured, this is a no motion. And so can you just explain to us how this will play out?
I think it's pretty clear, Jeff. Is that right? I mean, if this passes, we don't spend the money. If it fails, then we would return to a motion that would be in order for something to approve this. Is that correct, Jeff?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. At this point, then we're going to go ahead and call the question on this issue, and then if it does not pass, if it does pass, then it passes. If it doesn't pass, then we'll come back. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll again? A yes is in favor of stopping this purchase. A no is opposed to the motion that was made. Madam Clerk. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Bray, did you have a question? Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Matthey.
No.
Councilmember Bolin.
No.
Councilmember Miller-Wambwe.
No.
Councilmember Emig.
No.
Councilmember Painter.
No.
Councilmember Carrillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Black.
No.
Councilmember Crable.
Yes.
Councilmember Bray.
No.
Okay, the motion fails. Is there a motion to approve this as presented? Councilmember Bray, I see you nodding. Okay, is there a second to Councilmember Bray's?
I'll second.
Councilmember Painter seconding. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll? And again, this is the motion as initially presented, 8C on our agenda.
Councilmember Matthey.
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin.
Yes.
Councilmember Miller-Wambwe.
Yes.
Councilmember Emig.
Yes.
Councilmember Painter.
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo.
No.
Councilmember Black.
Yes.
Councilmember Crable.
No.
Councilmember Bray.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. There are 2 nays to announce, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Carrillo and Councilmember Crable.
Great. Thank you very much. We move next to the regular agenda, and we have a presentation under 9A of a financial update, fiscal year 2020, 2021 COVID projections as requested by the Finance Department. And we have a presentation by Mr. Scott Rathman, and then approximately 10-minute council discussion. So I'm going to turn it over. Well, first of all, I'll start with the Billy. Billy, did you want to add anything before I turn it over to Scott?
Maybe if I can figure out how to unmute.
Oh,
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. As you know, Phase 4 of the state's recovery plan started June 26th, which essentially meant that we're 2 months into this budget of almost a full quarantine. As Scott and the manager have discussed in the past, we've been very careful in our projections, and that coupled with the budget plan that you approved, which allowed for us to realize some savings, and the fact that some revenues have come in better than projected, have meant that, you know, we're at a position where we're not anywhere near out of the woods, but we're better than expected. Not to steal any of Scott's thunder, but I'll let him take this from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott, go ahead.
Well, that was a great summary. Thank you, Deputy City Manager. Tonight, it's kind of a combo platter. I'm going to make a couple of brief comments about 20. We don't have any material changes from last month. And then update Council, Mayor, and the community on our COVID projection for the impact. So we're, all things being held equal for the 21 budget, what kind of impact are we looking at this point in time? There's a lot of fluidity still in this situation. With sales taxes, we only have 1 full month of full quarantine of results, visibility on those results to look at, but we're going to try to update this projection monthly and try to keep everyone abreast as to what we're thinking, what our best estimation is related to the impact. So Phil, can you bring up the presentation, please?
Whoa.
And next slide, please. Nope, there we go. Start right there. Nope, go back one, please. I'm going to make a couple of comments. Phil asked me if I wanted to take control of the presentation. I thought, well, we'll avoid a couple of awkward moments of me trying to load it on to control the screen. And here we are with some awkward moments. Anyway, we have the word, I have the word prelim in here because we're still doing the audit. Most council members are aware. I think that the audit actually takes up to 6 months to complete. That's a lot of time for most people to get their heads around. But if you realize that we don't get our final revenues until we're 2 months into the following year, and then there's a lot of activity related to the audit. We have actuaries look at our insurance reserves, the police and pension, the police and fire pension audits, et cetera, et cetera. it takes quite some time, and just the vendor invoices that continue to come in. So this is still preliminary, but we're pretty close right now. So I'm pretty confident that we're going to be right around these numbers when we finish up the year. So at this point in time, go to the next screen, please. Revenues. Now, I wanted to highlight this. This is not too different from last month. I've added a couple of extra categories down at the bottom. I've referenced at least packaged liquor. I've referenced a few times over the last couple of months. You can see the 2020 budget variance column. We have some significant impact related to COVID. Now, this is compared to budget. So I want to highlight the fact that we had projections. We had budgetary projections for our revenues going into the end of the year based on the strong first 10 months of the year, the realized revenues that we'd had. Sales taxes were doing well. Food and beverage was doing extremely. You can look at these budget variances, but we were estimating that we're going to be on the other side of that plus these numbers. So right now, our current estimate is that COVID has had about a $1.8 million impact on 20. Most of these numbers are finalized. Those numbers we thought were going to be somewhat worse than that. I discussed that last month. So we're fairly pleased with the way we came in at the end of 20 on these major revenues. Next slide, please. No material changes to this exhibit. This is the revenue and expenditure exhibit. Sorry, income statement for the general fund. The net current activity favorable, unfavorable at the bottom has gone down by a couple $100,000. It was approximately $880,000 last month. But we're still we're running through the audit adjustments. And with that audit review, we review old POs, and we typically end up closing out some old POs, purchase orders during the year, and realizing some savings from that. So for now, I've just included a $250,000 audit final adjustment down at the bottom. So with the $630,000 net favorable surplus that we're looking at for the year, combined with our opening fund balance and then our adjustment for the restricted fund balance that's going towards some of those expenditures and $250,000 final audit adjustments, we're looking at still around that $24 million final fund balance. Probably going to be better than that, actually, because I'm assuming that $250,000 number is going to be somewhat better. So $24+ million in final fund balance, similar to last month, but I just wanted to comment that I think it's going to end up even being better than that. Next slide, please. As I mentioned at the start of the presentation, we finally have visibility on 1 full month of quarantine results for our sales tax. So this situation, as I mentioned, was fluid. Things are going to keep moving, but we've got a month worth of sales tax. We have some visibility on our food and beverage and some of our other major taxes. So that provides us an opportunity to update that projection that we did in April. Next slide, please. Before I launch into the updated projection, I just wanted to revisit the work we had done back in April and some of the assumptions that we had used. To recap, we went through all the line items of the general fund, and we broke down our model into 2 categories. Basically, an impact related to the shelter-in-place months, and then a trailing recessionary impact for the remainder of the year. So quarantine months, we ranged, as you can see there, 50% for sales tax, up to 100% for video gaming. Doing the research, we applied an 8.5% recessionary impact for the remainder of the year. And then we came up with the 3 scenarios at the bottom of the screen related to the months of quarantine. At that point in time, we didn't know when that was going to be lifted. So we had a May 1st lift, $5 million impact, June 1st, 7.3, and a July 1st, 9.5. At that point in time, we identified $5 million to address the May 1st impact. And that was made up of delayed projects, equipment purchases, savings, and $1.25 million in fund balance to use. Now, everyone realizes that the shelter in place or the quarantine did not lift on May 1st. So at this point in time, as Billy had mentioned, we're really looking at a 2-month quarantine impact on our financials, even though it was partially lifted during May and June. We basically are taking a conservative approach and looking at 2 months. Next slide, please. This is some of the key timing in the reopening the governor put into place. And this is how we base those assumptions on, that 2-month quarantine. You can see that the further expansion of retail to 50% occurred in May. We're really, I won't dive too deep in the weeds here, but our sales taxes, I kind of want the public to understand, when a retail sale occurs, if that occurs in April, we don't see that deposit from the state until July. And then our revenue recognition policy says we can only backdate 2 months. So April is obviously 3 months after July. So we end up backdating April's retail sales to the month of May. So really, April and May retail sales were under full quarantine. So that lends itself to our assumption of utilizing 2 full months of quarantine when it comes to doing our modeling, our impact modeling for the remainder of the year. Next slide, please. So at this point in time, we have 1 month of revenue to base our new assumptions off of. We added a column out to the right that shows the reduction, the percent reduction off the year-to-date budget. So for home rule sales tax, we're $616,000 under budget for that first month, and that's a 33% decrease. State, 24%. I won't read all of these, but you can see I'm gonna float down the page here a little bit. A local use tax. I usually mention this, that local use tax is our internet sales tax. That's the way it comes in from the state, but it doesn't come in in the category of home rule. It comes under local use. So you can see there's purchasing that's still occurring. It's actually increasing from internet purchases, but it's nowhere near offsetting the home rule and state sales tax impacts that we're seeing here. The other material impact is hotel motel. No great surprise there, a 70% reduction off our 1 month budget, 101,000, 70%. Currently, we're estimating that we're seeing about an impact of about $1.5 million in reductions from COVID to date for 21. Next slide, please. So that 1 month of information has provided, as I mentioned earlier, provided us the ability to update our projection. So this exhibit is a little confusing, but I would like everyone to understand, again, that we broke down our modeling by months of quarantine or shelter, and then a recessionary tail. So the first 2 columns, you can see the assumption we used back in April for the reduction for those quarantine months. So home rule sales tax, we assumed based on the facts and the things we were reading that there was going to be a 50% reduction. The previous screen showed that it was around 32%, but we're rounding down a little bit because we had some partial months of quarantine there. So we've adjusted our assumption to 31%. State sales tax, we had at 50, we took it down to 23% for the months of quarantine. Local motor fuel, a dramatic change, 75%. We assumed no one was driving to work, businesses were shut down, but it didn't come in that much under. So we've taken that down to 25%. A couple of things I wanted to highlight specifically on this exhibit, amusement. We didn't take amusement tax down at all for a quarantine going into this. In hindsight, we realized that, the BCPA has amusement tax, the arena had amusement tax. There's, the theaters in town. So, we took that down by 40% for the quarantine months. And then going off to the right here to go through these 2 columns, these are the recessionary trails for the remainder of the year. So if we have 2 months of quarantine, we're gonna have 2 months of potential recessionary impact. The 8.5% was what we used across the board for all categories. For amusement, we applied a 30% reduction for the remainder of the year. And basically that's our reading, our understanding is that the assembly restrictions for the groups greater than 50 is going to stay in effect for quite some time. So that's going to impact the theaters and the arena and the BCPA. And then hotel motel, while we took it down 90% for the months of quarantine and we revised that to 70%, we only had an 8.5% decrease for the remainder of the year, but we took that down by 50% for the remainder of the year. And so those two categories, the hotel, motel, and amusement, between the two, that was an $800,000 additional reduction in revenues, while all the other categories went up. And then the comment at the bottom, I wanted to highlight, mostly discuss the major tax revenues, but as part of these revisions, we've taken the parking, that's for the garages and ordinance violations, BCPA and the zoo down considerably for the remainder of the year. Next slide, please. These are the monetary impacts of the percentages that we just discussed. I should have included a column off to the right that showed the difference. My apologies for that. But for home rule sales tax, just to highlight a couple here, using the 50% reduction, we had $3.6 million for a 2-month quarantine, and that's gone down to about 2.9. So that's a $700, a little over $700,000 improvement on our projected impact for sales tax. And then on down, the difference for state is about $635,000. I don't have that. Going down local use tax, we took that down originally back in April, 204, but now that we're seeing that we're actually doing better than budget, we didn't consider any impact related to COVID for our projection. We just saw that it's actually above budget, but to be conservative, we left it basically flat. Replacement tax, that's a form of income tax, left that flat. Hotel motel, here's what I was speaking about earlier. We did have a projected impact of $364,000. Now it's $880, so that's roughly a $500,000+ additional reduction that we're looking at. Then amusement tax, taking that down from $85,000 impact to $315, so that's another $230,000 impact. Next slide, please. So where does that kind of get us from a summary level? The total revenue reduction, this is including the major taxes that I just spoke to specifically, including parks, parking, all revenues across the board that were impacted. Aquatics, obviously, that's part of parks. The current projection is a $9.8 million reduction in revenues. Along with that, though, are expense reductions for basically those same categories, BCPA, parks. We have some economic rebates related to sales tax incentives. We don't feel those are going to be met because of the sales taxes being down for the year. So what's the net impact? $8.5 million and as of today. Of course, that's still in motion, but that's versus $9.5 million in April. So a $1 million improvement. We had significant improvements with some of the realized revenues that we saw in many categories, but also realize some categories were not going to fare as well on the other side of the quarantine because there's still restrictions related to assemblage. So how are we going to cover that $8.5 million? Well, back in April, we came up with identified $5 million related to scenario number 1. 1.25 of that was use of fund balance. So to kind of come up with a use of fund balance calculation here, of the 5 million without the 1.25 million, that was 3.8 million of non-reserve identified savings. So those were delayed projects, delayed equipment, managed expenses, expenses saved from 20 that rolled into fund balance for capital improvement specifically. We put off the move. So all things being held equal, we would need an additional use of reserves of $4.7 million. So how does that look rolling forward from 2020? Assuming our $24 million ending fund balance that I just reviewed a few minutes ago, if we utilize 4.7 of that to cover, we'd end up with $19.3 million of ending fund balance in the general fund. And that meets with the GFOA recommended 2 months, which is about 16.7% of annual operating expenditures, or roughly $18 million for us. So to summarize that, it's the same message. been delivering the last couple of months. We're in a good position because of our reserve balances. Our revenues are trended a little better than our original projection. So this is providing us the opportunity to still kind of ease into 21 still and keep an eye on the changes and the developments related to COVID. And we're keeping our eye on revenues. We chart those monthly. We have monthly budget reviews with the departments. We send out the reports. We're constantly reminding everyone that we have to be diligent about our expenses. We've addressed a lot of the upfront commitments that we would find ourselves getting into at the beginning of the year, including the asphalt and concrete budgets. And so we've put ourselves in a position to basically, I hate to use this term, but to wait and see, because we're not just waiting and seeing, we're being very proactive about watching. Next slide, please. And the first 3 lines are the things I just mentioned. We're taking a very diligent approach to this. We know that potentially we could see some backtracking in the phases from the governor. I'm sure a lot of people have seen some of the headlines from today about the restaurant closures in town. So the numbers that I've just presented, they are very fluid. I'm overusing that term, but I can't emphasize it enough. We'll be updating those each month. Next month, I'll start kind of the regular 21 monthly finance director's report, but we'll always be kind of addressing this COVID impact and how it's looking in the long term, what we think our total deficit, not total, deficit is going to be in the general fund and what we're going to need to cover that. Again, we have strong reserves, provides us flexibility. And I did want to comment here at the end that our enterprise funds are on track. The revenues are on track. We haven't seen any reductions in consumption in the water fund. So everything is tracking very well there. I wanted to remind the public and council that our adopted budget books for 21 are online now, and the budget and brief is online as well. It's a very good document that kind of summarizes the major expenditure categories for the city. So sorry for the long rambling update. I hope that was helpful, and I'll take any questions now.
Thank you very much. Questions? We're going to start the council 10-minute Q&A here. Council members, any questions? Councilmember Matthew, I see your hand up.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, Scott. Great report. I mean, not that I'm happy about all the news, but it's easy to understand, I think, for us and residents. So I really appreciate that. I also appreciate you real quick spotlighting the news that a bunch of our local restaurants closed down over the weekend. I just wanted to actually applaud those restaurants for taking the proactive stance to keep both their employees and their customers safe, because I think we're going to see more of this happening going forward. I know most of them decided they wanted to close down and send all of their employees to get tested out of a preponderance of safety. And I think that was exactly the right move. It takes a lot of courage as a business owner to make that step. So I think we should be applauding them. I also wanted to highlight something you said, that internet sales are still going up. And I know that for obviously a couple months there was not a lot of options for people other than buy online. But if you could just clarify, my understanding is that that local use tax, that's the internet tax, is not actually based on our local residents purchasing, but right now it's actually based on a formula and the percentage of residents in the state of Illinois that live in Bloomington. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. So what that does is that means that, our residents' dollars, a proportion of those are also going to other cities that are smaller than us, or where maybe people aren't spending as much elsewhere in the state, right?
That is correct.
Okay. So I just want to encourage everybody who's watching this to do your best to shop local, because it does make a difference not only to our budget right here that we're concerned about, but it also makes a difference when we have a still a much higher than average unemployment rate. We have people who are out there going to be looking for work. We have businesses in some cases where they're literally hanging on by their fingertips right now, trying to make it through all of this nonsense. And so I think we just need to encourage everybody to shop as local as much as they possibly can, and to do so safely, with a lot of hand washing and mask wearing, and just giving everybody a little extra grace, because we're living through very crazy and trying times that nobody could have possibly predicted. But overall, awesome update. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Matthew. Other comments or questions for Mr. Rathman? Seeing none? Going once, going twice? Okay. Thank you, Scott. Very much appreciated. And thank you for all your hard work. At this point, we're going to go on to number 9, but letter B, consideration and potential action regarding ordinance 2020-18. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Mr. Tyus. You have a brief presentation or comments, and then we can turn it over to council if there are any questions. Excuse me.
Thanks, Mayor. Actually, will be very brief. I don't have any updates. As you know, this is something that we put on the agenda every meeting, as per your request, just to make sure that there's nothing that you want to add or change. And so no changes to this.
Okay. Questions of Acting City Manager Tyus? Seeing none, thank you very much. We're going to move on to item 9C, consideration and action on Councilmember Milawamboy's agenda initiative proposal to make Juneteenth a city holiday as requested by the administration department. At this point, the recommended motion would that the staff be directed to draft and bring back an ordinance for consideration, formally making Juneteenth a city holiday. I'm going to turn this over to Mboka for 3 minutes, and then we've got about a 10-minute council discussion. Mboka? Es-tu ici?
You're on mute.
Mboka.
Hold on.
Okay. We hear you.
Sorry. I mean, I was rolling. I was going right there, but sorry, I was on mute. So hopefully now everybody can hear me. Now you've tempted me, Terry, to do this in French, but I won't. So let me just first say that I want to thank everyone on the council for supporting the idea of bringing this back to the council, as an agenda item. I know a lot has been said already. I think we understand why this day is important. We've heard from folks, during public comment, why it is important. So in the spirit of efficiency, I wanted to just kind of move forward and share a couple of things that I thought would help to give this a little bit more shape for the staff to consider as they look to draft an ordinance. One of the first thing that I would say, as I looked into this, I know we've, sometimes people use the term city holiday, and observance, interchangeably at times. So what I'm really looking to do, and I've discussed this with Jeff prior to the meeting, would be, so the city to officially recognize the day, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we take the day off. Okay, so city staff doesn't take the day off. So it is an observance. The other thing that I'm looking to do is to really institutionalize this day, and by working through city code and making this part of the duties of the Human Relations Commission to work on this day and to bring people together within the community to help us celebrate the day. Because as you know, oftentimes when folks take over or work on things like this as volunteers, at some point volunteer fatigue can set in, or people move on, with their life because they move to a different area of the city, the state, or the country. and sometimes you can have a drop off. So what I'm really looking for is for something like this to continue on beyond all of us, 40, 50 years from now. And so that we also do not have a time where we don't celebrate it for a couple years or 3 years, because, people do not have either the interest or the energy or something like that, okay, to put this on. So that's why I'm looking to institutionalize this, so that the city staff, the Human Relations Commission can really serve as the spark, to get things going every year. The other thing, and as you've heard, this event is pretty important to people in the community. So there are some people who have a lot of institutional memory about it, and I think I would like the staff to work with those individuals. You've heard some of them during public comment: Willie Halbert, Arlene Jose, the Bloomington Normal Black History Project. So I'd like the staff to also work with them to put this event together. The other thing that I think we should also consider is funding. We can work with other local governments to really make sure that we have a celebration that is substantial and one that can gain recognition in the area, but also even in the state, and also we can also work with corporate sponsors who might be interested in supporting such an idea. And then the last piece, and I know I had mentioned this before, is the programming aspect of it, which to me is probably just as important, but even more important, because it really, it would be an opportunity for us to discuss some of the issues of concerns that we have within the city. And I can see this programming to be bookended with, kind of like an opening event, like a parade, but then, at the end of it, with like a big celebration, concert involving food. But in the middle of that, during the day, I can see conversations around some of the issues, of concern for the African-American community. I can see something like a youth summit, which I think.
Maboka, you're about 100% over budget. And these are logistics that we could talk about when we actually debate this. I think because you have 3 minutes, and it was really just to say why this was important rather than to move on to the implementation phase and all the details of implementation. So I apologize, but at this point, I'm just going to, we're going to shift and open this up to discussion. I think we know what the story is. And I do see Johnny Painter, Alderwoman Painter. Johnny?
You're on mute. I'd like to make a motion to approve this as Maboka presented it. He has done his homework and gave us a very thorough presentation on this. So I move to accept it.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Bright. Now, let me just, if I can, Maboka, just go ahead and ask, were you, your request and what we see in writing here says a city holiday.
Mm-hmm,
were you alluding to the fact that this really wouldn't be a city holiday? I mean, would people, because city holidays, people get the day off. That's kind of what
right, exactly. And that's what I was trying to clarify, because I know even last Monday I mentioned it, and that's where I started. But I want the date to be officially recognized, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we, city staff gets the day off.
Okay, well, that's something we'll have to discuss, because there isn't anything that is a city holiday where people don't get the day off. And would it be demeaning to Juneteenth if this were the one thing that you did not get a day off for?
Mm-hmm,
I mean, I think that's a question.
Well,
it's not what we need to answer now. It's just one.
Right.
The staff, I think maybe we can turn to Billy, at some point, and to say maybe we can bring it back with in both forms. City holiday without a day off, city holiday with a day off, and we can go there. But we do have a motion and a second. Other people want to speak to this. Councilmember Carrillo, and then Matthew. Jen?
I'm very supportive of the recognition of Juneteenth, and I agree with your assessment that it would be strange that that'd be the only holiday where people still have to work. So I think if we're going to do it, then we should commit to it, and we should make it a real official holiday, just like all the other ones.
Okay. Thank you, Jen. Councilmember Matthew.
Yeah, I was going to go the other way and say, let's just get rid of all the other holidays.
Make it all equal.
Yeah.
Work on Christmas, work on New Year's, work on Thanksgiving.
No, I just wanted to say, I think that this is a fabulous idea. I appreciate you bringing it forward. And I also just want to make the comment that I do fully still plan on being here 50 years from now. Maybe not on council, but still here.
Well, that would make one of us.
Hey.
Anybody else?
Scott too.
Okay. Well, Scott might. Who knows? You know.
I live pretty fast. Who knows?
That's true. Okay, so at this point, I suspect. Well, we have a motion on the floor and a second, and this is with respect to making this a holiday. I suspect, Billy, when this is brought back, based on the feedback that you're receiving, would you think we would bring this in two forms? One that would give people the day off, and one that would not. Billy, are there logistical issues with this?
One of the things that I'd like to request is the ability for us to have a discussion about that as a staff, and then maybe provide an update to you prior to the meeting. We will work towards putting this together as it was presented tonight, but also have a discussion about some of the other items. And so we will take that tack, if that's okay with council.
That sounds great. Councilmember Bolin.
Yeah, I would like to say that I would like to have options brought forward and then discuss those options, the pluses and the minuses. Because if it's a city holiday and we want the entire community to participate, what happens to the students and what happens to State Farm employees and all that would, it would be hard to include the entire community in that session. Anyway, I would like options.
And then in terms of logistics, one of those could conceivably, let's say it turns out it's on a Wednesday, it could, we could make a note that it would be celebrated either the previous or the subsequent Saturday or something. But Councilmember Black.
Thank you. And I'll just say that thanks again, Maboka, for bringing this forward. And I'm not really in a huge, this doesn't need to be brought back, I think, next month or anything. And, given that it is timely, of course, but I'd love to get the feedback of the Human Relations Commission, the Cultural Commission on this topic as we go through the options, as Donna mentioned. The more folks that are weighing in on these things and providing that feedback, I think is better for everything.
Sounds good. Councilmember Milwaukee.
Yeah, and I was going to say, for me, the day of programming would be typically the next Saturday.
Okay.
The Saturday after June 19th.
Okay.
Okay. And sometimes June 19th could be a Saturday, or if it's a Sunday, it would be the Saturday before.
Well, and then we could, those are the kinds of logistical things that we can work out.
Exactly.
If we know what we want to do, we can dump it on Billy and make him make it happen.
Yeah. And I know this, this is the how, but at least I wanted to give people some insight into what I was thinking and where all of that was coming from. And the staff can work on all the details and give us some options. So.
Thank you, Mboka. At this point, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Mathy.
Yes.
Councilmember Bolin.
Yes.
Councilmember Milawambwe.
Yes.
Councilmember Emig.
Yes.
Councilmember Painter.
Yes.
Councilmember Carrillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Black.
Yes.
Councilmember Crable.
Yes.
Councilmember Bray.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much. At this point, I'm going to turn to Mr. Tyus. Billy, for the city manager's discussion. Billy?
Yep, there we go. Thank you, Mayor. And Phil, if you would put the first slide up, I'd appreciate it. As you can see on the screen, August 2nd through 8th is National Farmers Market Week, which actually is an exciting time in that our internal economic development team will have several promotions as part of this. They will be offering, it was being called a double link match through Green Top Grocery and Link Up Illinois grants. And what that means is that when patrons purchase farmers market tokens through their link cards, what they purchase will be double matched up to $25. So an expenditure up to $25 could actually become $50. So that's exciting for folks who are link card users and who, in a lot of cases, frankly, do not have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. And so we're excited about that program. The market will also be hosting a series of market swag giveaways through their Facebook and Instagram accounts. So be on the lookout for that. The farmers market has really been popular since we've actually returned to the downtown Bloomington area, which we're excited about. I think that last reports were that there were more than 2,000 attendees during the last event. And so again, people are excited about being back outdoors. People are excited about the farmers market. Next slide, Phil, if you would. This, as you know, is a standing slide as it relates to the 2020 census. And we can't overemphasize the need for people to fill out their census. It's important to this community. A lot of the things that we look to do in this community, we receive funding for because of our census numbers. And so we can't overstate the importance of people going out and filling out their census. McLean County remains among the top counties in the state as it relates to participation. And again, we want to continue that. And finally, I don't have a slide for this, but it's been referenced on a couple of occasions tonight. Alderman Matthew mentioned being diligent as it relates to the pandemic. Our city manager says, I think probably on every staff meeting call, that, let's not forget that thing is still here. And we want to make sure that we encourage the community to remain diligent, practicing the guidelines that are being suggested as it relates to staying safe, because it's one of those things where unfortunately it spreads quickly. And as we're seeing, it's spreading quickly. So we really want to encourage people to remain diligent in doing the things that they need to do in this community to remain safe. And other than that, thank you guys and ladies for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Billy. We appreciate that and everything and all that you're doing. And I would just want to, under Mayor's comments, I would just want to reiterate what Mr. Tyus said, and that is obviously we need to remain diligent, irrespective of the fact that we may be in stage 4. It's possible that we could shift to a different version of stage 4 or stage 3, moving backward, if we're not diligent, not careful. And we definitely are going to be continuing to monitor local cases and spikes and the extent to which these things spike statewide and state public policy. At this point, I'm going to turn to Councilmember Aldermanic comments, and we're going to start with Councilmember Craybill and Matthew, the two hands that I see up. Councilmember Craybill.
Thank you, Mayor. Next week at this time, Monday, August 3rd, 6 p.m., I'll be having my monthly town hall. It'll be virtual. And so there's a Facebook event out for that. I've emailed some of my constituents on that. And if anybody's interested, and I can send them an invite. And we had a town hall last month. And we talked a little bit about the impact of George Floyd's death, and a number of the Ward 8 residents asked that Chief Donath speak at the next town hall, and the chief has graciously agreed. So Chief Donath will be there available to answer questions at next Monday's town hall. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. At this point, Councilmember Matthew, and then Bolin and Black.
Thanks, Mayor. So first I wanted to give a shout out to the Public Works guys for getting out there and rocking out the bulk waste pickup through the town. I got a lot of positive feedback from Ward 1 residents at how quickly they showed up, grabbed everything, and were off to the next spot. I think that we're really getting this down to a science and as we move throughout the town. So that's step one, or part one. The second thing, just to go to Billy referencing the census, is I have a couple of friends that have been hired by the census group. And so they are training and gearing up to start knocking on doors soon, like in the next couple of weeks. So if you don't want your door knocked on, you can go online to census2020.gov and take like the 5 minutes it takes to fill out the census, because I think that they're going to come knock on your door up to 5 different times, which of course costs everybody taxpayer money to pay somebody to come knock on your door. So if you don't want to be bothered at home, you can go to census2020.gov and spend 5 minutes, and then they will leave you alone. So that is going to happen, and they will come knock on. They're going to get database lists of every person who did not, or every property where somebody did not fill out the census. So lots easier just to go fill that thing out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Matthew. Next, Councilmember Boland, Black, and Amy.
Okay, I'm going to circle back a little bit to the COVID and the COVID numbers. It's not going away. It will never go away. And if our goal is for it to be 0, that is never going to happen. My number one recommendation is to wash your hands after you touch anything that is not within your house. Wearing a mask sometimes gives a false sense of security. That's not to say you should not, but I see many people with their mask on touching their mask and then not washing their hands. So I just cannot stress enough, washing hands, washing hands, washing hands. And then masks number 2. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Boland. And we're gonna, let's see, who was, I'm sorry, Councilmember Black, and then Councilmember Emig.
Thank you, Terry. And just briefly, we're talking a lot about COVID, which is obviously top of mind, and we're going to stay on it. Although I do want us to continue, and Tim has alluded to this in many cases, and Billy has as well, of the day after COVID, and what does our community look like after the pandemic subsides, and whatever measure we choose, as to Donna's point. And one of the things that I continue to hear, and I think should be top of mind as we talk about downtown Bloomington specifically, is that there's been a lot of really positive feedback about the outdoor dining, using those parking spaces to provide additional seating. Just anecdotally, people who have not really traditionally been downtown are frequenting it more often. So as we come back with policy pieces in the future here, I'm hoping our team can start thinking really long-term about what can we do, what can we take the benefits, the opportunities that were created by a terrible global pandemic in terms of shaping how we do those types of zoning codes, those sorts of things, because that's important. And it's really the reception from the residents has been really positive, and we're here to make people happy.
Oh, is that right? Oh, okay. Councilmember Emig, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to applaud local businesses that have selected to shut down just to make sure that they are being safe. And the sooner that we all comply with these orders from our health department, the sooner our businesses can get back up and running in a safe manner. So it really is a financial investment as well as an investment in health. I also want to thank Maboka again for putting forth the Juneteenth holiday. I think this is a great way for us to go. And I especially appreciate the collaborative effort that he's given to make sure that all of our stakeholders have a voice and have input. Census. Get that census done. You don't want people coming to knock on your doors. No, it's a really important thing. Also, Public Works has done a great job with bulk waste. Ours was gone in a heartbeat. And I've heard a lot of positive reports from constituents as well. And finally, the sidewalk sale that happened recently downtown. I heard from a lot of downtown businesses that they saw people they hadn't seen before kind of wander into their space. So I agree that this outdoor opportunity is a good map for the future. And I also look forward to thinking through how we can get more of that green space So thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Mboka, last word here. Mboka?
Sorry, I always do that. Okay.
Don't do that.
Yes, I won't do it again, promise. No, just a quick thank you to everyone for supporting the initiative of Juneteenth. And the other thing that I want to say is that I know at some point we were supposed to all take a picture because of the for the census with our shirts. And this might be, I don't know how we do that, with social distancing, but we could find a creative way to do it to.
Did you say we're supposed to take pictures without shirts?
No, with our shirts.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Just clarifying there, Mboka.
Yes. No, that would not be good. So I think it would be nice for us to be able to do something. We're trying to make a last push for people to promote the census. So if we could do something creative, I don't know, all of us with our shirts and pictures or kaleidoscope or something like that, I think that'd be nice. That's all.
Great. Thank you, Mboka. Again, just to clarify, with our shirts. Yes.
With our shirts, Terry.
We're pro shirt. Okay. At this point, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Matthews. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Bray. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you all very much. And thank you, Mboka. Bye-bye.
Bye.
A tu talero.
A viendo.